Well, first of all, let me say good afternoon to the media. What I would say to you today is a new low for labor relations, and here's why. KFC Bermuda Limited, together with KFC operations, have taken the low road in its ongoing dispute with the BRU. Instead of abiding by the law and taking the lawful steps to see to it that this dispute is handled correctly and within the bonds of the law, KFC have decided to do what it appears to be the opposite. They are bullying staff into what the union believes is a direct attempt to oust the remaining union members from its ranks with unsavory tactics. Despite an injunction being in place, we have been told by the workers at KFC Bermuda Limited at a meeting held this morning that KFC Bermuda Limited or KFC Operations Limited are breaching the terms and conditions of employment of KFC Bermuda Limited employees. They are refusing to pay employees for the time that they have worked and attempting to withdraw the overtime benefits for the employees without their agreement and placing unreasonable conditions for employees who are affiliated with the claim against KFC Bermuda Limited on issues such as overtime, dates of work, and requests for vacations. The injunction was granted by the Chief Justice on June 7, 2012. KFC's attorneys have never applied to set aside the injunction, which will remain in place until further order of the court. In action number 212 and number 188, the BIU submitted affidavit evidence against KFC Bermuda Limited given by Chief Shop Steward Sister June Douglas. On May 13, 2013, Sister June Douglas' employment with KFC Bermuda Limited was terminated by Mr. Jason Benavides. Sister June has recent health challenges, which has resulted in temporary partial vision impairment of one of her eyes. She is temporarily disabled. KFC Limited say that because of Sister June's disability, they can no longer employ her. We have sought advice from our attorneys and take the view that KFC Bermuda Limited actions in regard to this unlawful is a breach of the Human Rights Act 1998. The Act requires an employer to accommodate a person suffering from a disability with work so long as there is no undue hardship. It is a strange coincidence that Sister June, Chief Shop Steward of KFC, is KFC primary witness for both actions against KFC and a supporter of the Bermuda National Union, should be turned out of her employment with KFC Bermuda Limited after more than 30 years of unblemished service because of a disability. We think there is something more to this story, and we have instructed our lawyers to get to the bottom of it. An action against KFC Bermuda Limited will commence shortly. KFC Bermuda can explain its distasteful behavior to the judge. We say enough is enough. We also have a prepared statement that Ms. Furbert, if she hasn't handed it out to you yet, she will hand it out to you. But I will take any questions that you might have.
Do we see any protest action? Are you going to lobby the public to protest KFC once again? That tactic that was used earlier or late last year?
Well, what I can say, and you know, you'll see it in the press statement that we met with the staff this morning. We're very concerned about the behavior of management because it's quite evident that the ruling of the Chief Justice was against the employer, so much so that they have to pay the government's costs, they have to pay the union's costs, and as a result of that, they lost. So now what they're trying to do now is use these tactics to try to see they're going to win. And I can tell you the BIU and its members will not sit by and allow employer, because we've been law-abiding citizens, right? We've been through the courts, we've got the judgment handed down, and as a result of that, KFC needs to now just get on with business. But once again, people's going to accuse the union of doing certain things. But we're not going to sit by and allow an employer to pick off our members one by one and do these backdoor tactics that were considered. That's basically against what the employees and what they're standing for.
Furbert, you mentioned KFC is refusing to pay employees for time that they've worked. What does that mean? You mean like employees working 40-hour week and when it comes to payday, they're just not getting?
Well, you know, they basically got them scheduling for a certain amount of hours, and then they refuse to pay them for all the hours that they work. That's our understanding, you know, from the staff, and that's very unfortunate because, you know, rather somebody's scheduled to work, if they're scheduled to work 40 hours or 38 hours, and what the employer then is not paying them for 40 hours that they work, as well as this whole question about overtime. They want them to work, you know, overtime for straight time and those sort of things, because if they're on the day off and they're called to come in, they don't want to pay them in accordance with what the agreement says. Remember now, the injunction that was put in place was put in place to protect the agreement. That's what it was put in place for. And this relates to daily overtime, because what the employer is saying is that we're not going to pay you any overtime till after you work your 38 or 40 hours. But the current agreement that we have, KFC, calls for daily overtime. That means if you have an 8-hour day, if you work 9 hours, you get the other 9th hour at overtime rates. That's what we call daily overtime.
How many staff roughly are employed, and among them, how many are union members?
Well, I know that when we were having this conversation probably a year or so ago, it was probably somewhere between 28 to 30 employees there. And we had, at that point in time, about 18 to 20 members. That was members of the BIU, and it could be as high as 21 or 22, because what we do have is at least 2 or 3 members, 2 or 3, 4 members that also work a second job somewhere else. So in that regard, they're not paying 2 sets of dues. So technically speaking, we could probably have as high as maybe 22 to 24 members there, right? As a result of that, so I can tell you, we still have the majority of workers in the workplace that are organized.
So have you had any of your members there leaving recently because of these tactics? Anything you can actually attribute folks leaving KFC?
Well, I can tell you, I can give you, you know, what I found out this morning is that there is a situation where one of the part-time workers, and this is kind of interesting because it was a request from an employer to an employer. We had, and I won't call the employer's name, but we had this person who works part-time at KFC. His full-time employer requested from KFC that they wanted him released for just a few days to take care of some work at his main employment. Mr. Benny wrote a letter back to that employer to say that he's not prepared to release the employee for them few days. And that to me is telling us that what the employer is trying to do is, you know, either use these texts to discourage people, maybe have them leave or whatever have you. But what would happen, and here's the, I guess, the question needs to be asked. What would happen if that employee got sick for 2 weeks? Who would do the work? So the mere fact the employer made the request, and the request was put on the employer's letterhead, so I know it came from, you know, the full-time employee's full-time employment. They asked for this person to be released for this period of time. So it's not like the person drew up this letter. The request came from his employer because they needed him to do something. And here's another employer saying, I can't release this individual because for whatever reason.
Do you have any information to prove or to confirm that non-union KFC members are not being subjected to this treatment?
Do I have any
information?
that
You say that the withholding of pay and the tactics being levied against unionized employees.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know it's unionized employees only?
Well, it's our understanding from the staff that, you know, because you know that we have the KFCB and we have the KFCO. Our understanding from the staff is that the KFCO staff are being treated completely different than the KFCB staff. So much so that the uniforms that are being issued, you'll find they'll give more uniform issues to the KFCO staff and less uniform issued to the KFCB staff. And they've been telling us about this for a while now, that the employer is now under, you know, using these tactics against them to try to get them to sign up for KFCO. So you'll get these other little probably fringe benefits that were often like uniforms and a few other things. But uniforms are also part of the current agreement. So I'm a little bit concerned that, you know, this whole question about uniforms is still like as one issue just hanging out there where the employer is using that, and that's just one issue. There are other issues down there that are being that the employer is using tactics, like telling somebody, "I want to change your days off." I signed to work for KFC or agreed to work for KFC, knowing that I have Mondays and Tuesdays off because I've got other things that I need to do. The employers now are coming to you and say, "Well, I'm going to change your days off now to Wednesdays and Thursdays or Thursdays and Friday." They don't know what my other commitments are. I took their job to understand that these were going to be my set days off. So instead of having dialogue, they're just changing the days and not even getting the employees' consent to change those days. Those are some of the things that are happening there in the workplace.
Are KFCO employees being paid overtime?
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I can tell you that my information is that they probably are, but I can't confirm that one way or the other. So I'm not going to tell you that they are. All I can tell you is that if they're giving them the uniforms that way, I would like to think that they're also treating them differently in other respects to encourage people to sign over to KFCU.
And they're giving them a lot of overtime, but we didn't have to pay them overtime because they're doing, some of them are doing like $65 and the B can't even get the 40 on them. And telling them they can't work 6 days and that type of thing. So
I do
that's
realize.
that's from the staff themselves. That's
So
not all they're
let me
saying.
just clarify for what the General Secretary just said, is that you have people in KFCU getting as much as 55 hours a week or so, and we're not sure if they're being paid overtime, but you have the other staff in KFCB that sometimes can't even get their 40 hours. They're giving them 36 hours or 38 hours or whatever. They're not even getting their 40 hours because the KFCU staff are getting more than the 40 hours that they should be working on a regular basis.
Sorry, just to clarify, KFCB is unionized workers and
KFCB is the company that existed before KFCU came along. Remember now, they divided the company up and said we want to start a new company. 99% of the shares remain with KFCB, 1% went over to KFCU. 1% of the ownership of the company went to KFCU.
So two different, one operation, but half of the workers signed up to a different company, but were doing the same job next to the other workers who were kind of a different.
Well, it is. Remember now, the injunction was put in place to protect that, because what the KFC management was trying to do was take everybody out of KFCB and put them in KFCU. But because the union and employee had this challenge with the termination of the CBA, we were able to go to court, as I said to you, last year, June, and get the Chief Justice to agree that the injunction should be granted to protect these, the employees' benefits, the contracts of employment that they signed, because basically we had submitted that as affidavit evidence that hers were the benefits they were enjoying, and if you put them, if they're all put underneath KFC, they're going to lose a lot of the benefits that they get under the KFCB collective bargaining agreement. Any other questions? Thank you.